Here we are. It is the Bennett Brothers podcast for the Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. television show. I am Jerry Bennett.
And I am Joel Bennett. Welcome and thank you for joining us. If you're joining us for the first time, we are a podcast dedicated to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, movies, television shows, everything there in between. This podcast is specifically dedicated to the Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. television show that airs on ABC. We also do other things like Star Wars, DC comic films, all sorts of things. So you can check us out on iTunes or any other places that they host podcasts.
Send us some feedback at
Bennett Brothers Podcast at gmail.com. You can also check us out on Facebook at facebook.com/Bennett Brothers Podcast. Check us out on Twitter at Bennett Bros Pod. And we're
That's enough.
Other places.
Anything else, and it's too much. Send us your feedback, and if you can give us a review on iTunes, we'd love to see that. Those are
and now we are done pandering to you. So thank you for joining us. We are going to spoil the heck out of the next episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. called Meet the New Boss. But before we do that, we're going to get into our award-winning segment,
say this every
News.
time. News this week, Joel?
News this week. Well, one big thing we got is that Stan Lee has been filmed in 4 cameo segments for the next 4 films. Maybe the next 4 films.
They had him come down to Atlanta for a day. They filmed him in 4 different scenarios that they plan on using in the next 4 films. Does that include Doctor Strange, or is that one already done? We don't know. But that's smart.
Ragnarok as well?
They're banking them because the man's 93 years old.
Was his wife also down there in them? Because she appeared in the Captain America
care.
Civil War one. Actually, they're a wonderful couple. There's a documentary.
I
that
saw
just
the
came out.
documentary.
Yeah, they work really well together.
You'd have to. Because
Yes.
Other news this week? Joel, do you know that they're going to have one final Star Wars Rogue One trailer, and it's going to be coming out with Doctor Strange?
I did not know that. That's nice.
Information.
That's good stuff. That is information, yes.
Ash vs. Evil Dead Season 2 starting up?
That'll be starting up. A lot of things are starting up. We got
Red Dwarf Season 11?
Yes, we got Luke Cage starting up this weekend, and so we will be podcasting that out to you guys in 2 segments, the way we did our Daredevil and our Jessica Jones podcast.
We're hoping to get that out at least the first half sooner rather than later because we are having a break next week from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. already. Vice presidential
debate.
Debate is what I'm seeing. So, and I don't think we're going to cover that. No? Yes?
No.
Okay, I'm not going to cover that. And like I said, Luke Cage is the big news here. Obviously, Suicide Squad is still raking in the dough against all of Joel's predictions. He said it would make $120 million. I said it's probably going to make closer to 731. And what's it at now? 731. So I think I got that right on the nose.
Right on the nose.
It's not bad.
Not too shabby.
And then there's a bunch of other news, like there's some Black Panther casting, and there's Doctor Strange is happening, and there's talk of characters being in the Defenders from Luke Cage. But that's not really news. That's what we call not news.
Not news.
And so since we're done with the news, we're going to get into this episode. Joel, what is the title episode?
We are cruising right through. The title of the episode, again, is called Meet the New Boss. And away we go.
First impressions, Joel.
First impressions. Yeah, that's always a good place to start. After the first watching, it wasn't that high on my... compared to the opener, it wasn't as good. Upon second watching, I realized what they were doing. You're establishing a new major character. I think that's going to be a part of the show in the new director. I think he's going to be a part of the show for a while now. And they're starting. They're setting up pieces. They wanted to get. Yep. They're setting up pieces for our first arc of the season. I think there's gonna be a bigger arc coming up here, but I'm not sure what that is yet. But that's what they're setting up. So I understand what they were doing. I liked what they were doing. It's just not the type of episode that makes me. It's not a rewatchable episode. The second time through, I was like, okay, this is still good, but it's not. It wasn't as good as the pilot or the premiere this season.
The premiere was pretty awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I liked this episode a lot. This was setting up pieces, a lot of information, and everything like you stated. It went by really fast, different than the first one. The first episode was action scenes and meeting old friends again and getting those characters. This one was just like, wow, what's going on in this scene? Oh, they're setting up this one, and to the point where it went by very fast, and I liked it.
Yep. All right, well, let's get into it.
Here we go.
So we're starting in some house. So we get to meet a boy, and he's getting haunted, I guess is better than by spirits, ghosts, whatever you want to call them. We'll call them ghosts for right now. But the ghost of Lucy, who we find out her name later, who's played by Lily Birdsell. She was Hannah in the Walking Dead webisodes from 2011. I know, right?
So obscure.
I know, it's very obscure.
But what the important question was she in Sons of Anarchy?
She was not.
All right.
We also get to see the dad get haunted as well. The dad was played by John Churchill, and the only reason I bring that up is because he was in a couple episodes of Scare Tactics. So
okay.
I just wanted to bring up Scare Tactics. That was a great little show.
What I liked about this was you almost never in a horror movie, it's like the parent is always so dismissive of, sure, it's a ghost. I love the fact that he sees it. It's like, whoa, it's a ghost. I enjoyed that scene. This is laid out very entertaining because none of this is spoon-fed to you and like, okay, this is who this is. It's all a mystery to the point where I've yet to read. I don't know what the ghosts are. I guessed last week, and I think I guessed wrong. What I've looked online is nobody I've seen has put anything up that I would say sounds like what it is. They're all like, I have no idea if this is an original idea or if this is a comic book idea, which is really interesting about a show like this, a show like Walking Dead, a show like Game of Thrones, because it's based on a book or a series of books or something along those lines. There is a lot of points where even if it's a new interpretation, there's still an existing
source material,
thoughts about being Ghost Rider, being Quake, being whatever, versus a show like Lost, Doctor Who, whatever, where every episode you cannot guess where it's going to go unless it's poorly written structure-wise. You know that they're going to go a certain direction, like we're going to go, and the Ghost Rider's backstory is here. I don't know how it's going to play out, but there are certain features here. And with this ghost stuff, if we will discover it, like when we get into who the director is, and if it turns out to be who we think it is, that already gives some implication of where they might go with him. Even if it's wrong, it still kind of leads down in that direction. But this could be all brand new stuff, which means we go, okay, I have no idea what they're going to do. Are they creating a brand new superhero team? Is it going to be the three villains who have the most power in the world, or will they all just disappear like this guy does later in this episode? Don't know.
Okay, we'll talk about some ideas later on when we start to explore them more, and the episode starts to reveal a little bit more about them. Starting at this first scene, though, apparently this is Lucy's house at some point, and I think this is going to go back to, this is the start of them realizing that they've been trapped in these boxes for years.
How long, Joel?
Years.
How long, though?
Years.
What do you think, though? And
5 years?
Okay, the only reason I asked that is because we are living in a fictional world cinematically that goes back to Agent Carter. Is this, do you think it goes back?
Well, they have the picture that he grabs later on. So the picture's
good.
Still up.
That's a good point. I mean, so you think it's
clothing doesn't look too.
What do you think, within a 5-year time frame?
I think within a 5-year.
Okay,
time frame.
As opposed to decades.
Yes.
Okay,
correct.
That's cool.
So the next scene, we go to Robbie's house, which we get to see where Robbie's living at. He's driving his car, which license plate is 299ZXB. I think they made a point of showing that. I think that's actually. Is that out of the comics, I'm assuming? Because we didn't mention it last week, but the first introduction of Ghost Rider was actually almost shot for shot from the comic book, where we get to...
And I just read that issue because they had it for free on Comixology, and I had not read any of this particular Ghost Rider because it's very little. It was not a hit. But I read the first issue, and they didn't get into that part of it, but it was actually really good. It was much better than I thought it was going to be. I would recommend it. What was that number again? 29X?
299ZXB.
299ZXB?
Yeah. And basically what he's doing here is he's driving to work. He realizes, Quake is following him around, and they drive past the graffiti we saw in the last episode. I guess it's kind of showing us the locations of places in this little bit of area. And he drives to his garage, and we see Robbie's chatting with some of the other guys who work there, playing some dominoes, and they're talking about the L.A. Rams, which just had their home opener 2 weeks ago. So it's a little timely, which is clever. We go to the playground. We see Fitz and Simmons there. They're analyzing the box that Lucy was trapped in. And apparently it's filled with some very advanced technologies, like extremely advanced technologies, more advanced than anything they'd ever seen before, which is cool. I like the way that, I know Mac later on talks about it being spirits and ghosts, but it's like, no, here's how you can solve this technically. And I always love when the shows do that. I've mentioned this before, when you can talk about superpowers and you can explain them, how they work scientifically, so it's not just magic, although we're going to deal with magic obviously with Doctor Strange.
Apparently the license plate, which also made it was shown last week also.
Yes, it was.
No one online has been able to see anything that's significant of that, so it's not clearly if it was in the comics, somebody would be able to pull up an image of that. So it looks like
There is a license plate we see later on in the show that's Saint Bern, but I thought that was just talking about Bernie Sanders, so I don't know.
could be Mr. Burns.
So they're looking at the box. So May and Coulson, they're looking at a poster up that has, the poster says, suspect it and report it. I don't know if that has any significance, if that's an Agent Carter thing or if that's been up for a long time. But they're looking at that. They've made a point of looking at it. So that's up there. And then the Coulson and May, they're waiting to see the director, who is going to be played by Jason O'Mara, who was in Terra Nova and in one of the most underrated, probably one of the best season finale TV shows, in my opinion, Life on Mars.
I wonder if you're going to say Life on Mars.
That season finale for Life on Mars, the show series finale, was one of the most satisfying series finales to a TV show.
It was quite abrupt too, because that only lasted one season.
2 seasons.
No.
It got 2 seasons.
No.
I think it was an Australian show or was it an English show?
It's an English show that
lasted
yeah.
1 season.
And then they did another show off of that, a spin-off one of that.
But Life on Mars, I'm like 95% sure that unless it was
No,
one of
it
those,
was like
unless it was
13 episodes
no,
max.
it was way more than
To
that.
the internets.
It was way more than that. Well, while Jerry looks that up, I also want to point out he also plays Bruce Wayne's voice in all the
Yes,
DC.
he does. Yes, he plays Batman's
animated
voice.
yeah, Batman Bruce Wayne voice in the animated movies and such. So he's crossing over to both worlds, like many an actor have done.
What do you think of him? Well, we're not to him.
We
yet.
haven't
Yeah,
gotten to
we're
him
not
yet. I just wanted to mention
So
that.
let's
now
talk
while
about
we
this
had a chance.
conversation here. It's May and Coulson. What do you think the point of all this is?
Again, this is a setup thing where he's a mystery. They're trying to establish. I don't know what they're trying. The way this show is set up right now is trying to set. They're trying to set the new director up for disappointment for us, as in we are rooting for Coulson, so this new guy is not going to be someone we appreciate. But the episode does everything it can to ingratiate us into him and to like him, and I think it definitely works. But at this point, it's very much a mystery, and they're trying to set it up like, oh, this new director, he is gonna be a stick in the mud.
Okay, so apparently Life on Mars is a David Bowie song.
Yes.
Oh, no. Looks like 17 episodes total.
So maybe one season split into 2 parts. Maybe that's
something
what I'm thinking.
like that. Or yeah, there were 6 or whatever, but that was it.
Okay. Well, if you get a chance and you want to watch something good for 17 episodes,
Or if you want to listen to some nice music.
yeah, I recommend Life on Mars. That works both ways. Yeah. So, okay, well, we cut back to the garage where, Quake, there's a lot that goes on here, but basically Quake is confronting Robbie at his place of work where he can't transform and fight her right away. And
this was weird. I was really liking this whole, I know this interaction comes back and forth, but it was interesting because I liked how she was playing that card. Like, you can't do anything because, the teacher will see. You can't do anything. But then she goes too far, as we'll get into, and it was like, what was her plan at this point? Because as soon as they leave, he's got, although the worry is what he's gonna do some property damage.
Well, I think she's definitely knows he's a good at heart kind of person.
It was weird though that she did not think it through. I thought she was really well done, and then all of a sudden I was like, well, oh wait a minute, what is she doing? She's not thinking this past, and it comes and bites her.
Maybe she feels like she can hold her own or something.
I guess.
I don't know. It's a good question. It's a really good question. Back at the playground, May and Coulson, they go to meet the director, and they get stopped beforehand by a big S.H.I.E.L.D. agent, a very big S.H.I.E.L.D. agent who stops him from entering. Who doesn't have a name? I don't think we'll see him again.
He does have a name because Coulson, the director says, "Hey, Silly or Simon or whatever." No, he goes, "Hey, go take a coffee break."
And I didn't know he said that. Okay, maybe he said his name.
He said his name, but it was just his
where I
first
was looking
name.
around. I didn't see anything about it.
Began with an S. That's all I remember.
And then we get to meet the director, the new director, whose name is Jeffrey. They don't say his last name in the episode.
Did they say Jeffrey or did they say Jeff?
They say Jeffrey.
I thought he said Jeff.
He says Jeffrey.
Okay.
And they don't actually say his last name in the episode, but his last name is Mace.
No, you're guessing.
Well, on IMDb has him up as Jeffrey Mace.
Well, here's the thing about that is the actor came out recently talking about the character, and he didn't mention it. His statement was that his character has a significant history in the Marvel Universe, and he's got a very masculine name. And that was what he said, which makes you go, okay, yeah, Mace would work. And even then, people were wondering who he could be, and they speculated Mace, which would make him, as you said, Jeffrey Mace, which is a character from World War II, not like post-dated like Sergeant Fury, where they wrote a comic book in the 60s and said it took place in World War II. This was a real World War II character. He was called the Patriot, and he was a Captain America type character. In fact, some people would say he may have predated Captain America a little bit. It was never a popular character. And the significance of the Patriot wasn't so much the fact that he was a Patriot, but in the 50s, they still kept making Captain America comic books. They made them for another decade after the World War II. And it was then when they came back in the 60s and they said Captain America was frozen in the ice for all that time period, they said, well, wait a minute, what was with all the Captain America stuff in the 1950s? And so they had to retroactively said those were different people playing Captain America. There was another Bucky and this, and another Cap, and actually the second Cap gets killed. Yes, the second one, and so Jeffrey Mace, who is the Patriot, he becomes the third Captain America in the middle 50s, which I think it's more a continuity thing in the comic books versus a reality of the time. If I'm wrong on that, let me know, but I know you won't, so I'm going to say I'm right. Yeah, and then the character eventually does die off in the comic books, but again, it's comic books, it doesn't mean anything. In the comic books, I believe the character is strong, Captain America strong. I don't believe he's lead pipe to the face strong.
Who was what was the name of the character on Jessica Jones that the guy who's taking the drugs becomes?
Nuke.
It becomes Nuke.
Yes.
I couldn't remember what's his name. I know it's a patriotic
Nuke.
thing. He wears
Mace.
he has like American flag,
steel,
and all that kind of stuff. But I didn't. Yeah. Okay. Great. No. Good to know.
So,
we'll talk more about his superpowers coming up.
Yeah. But if he is that same character from the comic books, they've given him a power upgrade. I think my guess would be is they're taking the name, they're taking the historic significance of it. Hopefully, and I shouldn't say hopefully, I know we'll get more of that backstory. It'll be very interesting to find out if he actually is a character in this world who's been around all that time and actually has that backstory, or if he's an Inhuman, as they say he is. This is new. This is a modification, which you totally could modify this character. This is not something anybody's going to go, no, not my favorite character, Patriot. So you could modify it, but I'm hoping that they do something with the history. I'm hoping that he has a history. Maybe he's immortal, or
there'll be a lot of questions. Like, did he become an Inhuman with the Terrigenesis mist? Was in the fish oils? Is that when he became Inhuman, or has he been Inhuman for a long time? There's a lot of history.
I know. I'm saying my hope is that this is one of those people, when people see him, like they seem like, oh yeah, everybody knows him. We just never mentioned him to this point. He's this famous,
Isn't he the
superhero.
uncle of? He's an uncle of one of the famous generals. Maybe Ross, but or it's
in the comics.
Yeah, I remember reading that somewhere. I remember reading that somewhere. Also, interesting enough, you mentioned like changing favorite characters and all. I know I'm changing the subject just a little bit here, but apparently in the comics now, Quake has been called Sky.
I don't care about that.
But I think it's one of those things that like the comic book's taking a page out of the TV show.
There is an Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. comic book which is based on the characters of Melinda May, Fitzsimmons, Coulson, now Sky, Quake, she's in there, and they even brought in Ward. And at this point, I stopped reading because it's still coming out, and I wanted to like it, but there's not enough time in the day to read.
You're watching the characters on TV,
and the book's just been okay, and so. If somebody's reading the book and tells me it's better, let me know. But I know you won't, so I'm not worried about it.
There it is again. Speaking of catchphrases, he has a catchphrase: "A team that trusts is a team that triumphs." I don't know if that's a special catchphrase or they just made it for the show or something like that. But that's his catchphrase that he likes to use. And we also find out that S.H.I.E.L.D. is about to be unveiled as a legitimate agency again. So that's kind of cool. They're going to open up S.H.I.E.L.D. to the rest of the world again and say, hey, this actually exists. We've cleaned house, and now everything's back to normal. We'll see how that plays out in the public eye, because obviously people are going to be like, wait a minute here.
Considering I just watched Captain America Civil War again last night, and there's all this talk about how S.H.I.E.L.D. is gone and won't come back and everything, and regardless of whatever happened with Avengers Age of Ultron and Nick Fury and wherever the heck he's at with his fully functional S.H.I.E.L.D. helicarrier. So, yeah, interesting. And there was, tying into news, there was rumors with Sam Jackson coming out saying that he could see S.H.I.E.L.D. coming back into the movies again, because he's obviously under contract to do more. But yeah, that has nothing to do with the TV show. Where you at?
I am moving along here. Wanted to check something. I wanted to clarify who the uncle was.
Did you
But
find
anyway,
anything?
not yet, because you stopped me in the middle of searching for it. Anywho,
How
we're
did
gonna
I
we're gonna
stop
we're gonna
you?
keep on. And we find out that May is still seeing faces. So that's something that happened last episode.
And is
we're gonna
this
get
her
more into
strength that she doesn't cave in like everybody else? She's able
Probably.
to fight it off.
She's able to fight it off for as long as possible. We come to Mac, Fitz, and Simmons, and they're looking at the box, and they get to mention Tobias Ford. He was in season 1. He was the one who can phase in and out. He was the one who died in the barn. And I remember the barn sequence because we talked about it, and the barn was in a ton of sequences. And at that time, we had mentioned the barn from Walking Dead is the same barn. So that's why I remember that episode. And they're trying to figure out how Lucy is incorporeal. And then we cut back to Jeffrey and Coulson. They're talking about, this is probably one of Jerry's favorite parts. They talk about how Coulson had an unlimited budget to build $1 billion ship and all that. And then Jeffrey's like, I need to make money from the Sokovia Accords, the House Appropriations Committee, the
we're
UN.
getting into HR conversations.
We're getting into HR stuff. So that was, I'm sure Jerry loved that. Here was an interesting line, though.
Let's ask him.
Jeffrey says they both know why he has the job. And that's one of those, you're supposed to think, oh, he has the job because Coulson gave him the job, the president gave him the job. It's obviously gets answered a little bit more later on, but I think there's still even more to why he has the job, like we talked about. Okay, so we get to go to a place called Momentum Alternative Energy Labs, which will be an important part of this episode here. We get to see Lucy. She walks in. She opens up another one of those boxes, and another spirit comes out.
So she clearly has control of her density.
They can touch things sometimes.
Very
and they
vision-like, really.
Yep. Oh, nice. Good call. His name is Hugo. He's played by Ward Roberts. He was in Mansers. Remember that TV show Mansers? And he was in the Nice Guys movie just recently.
I remember Manimal.
And then they start talking. So this is where we're going to start getting a lot more history about this group of people, but apparently there is I put that in quotes there, who did something to trap them in the boxes for years. Who this he is, we don't know. We don't find out by the end of this episode, but that's going to be something that's going to come later on as the season moves forward. As the arc, because I don't think these are the big villains for the season.
No.
I think this is going to be an arc that leads to a bigger villain that leads to...
But clearly, we waste one away in this episode. I made a comment when we were watching the episode because the characters have ghoulish looks. And it almost seemed cartoonish or
Remind me of the Frighteners.
But it was like the
Remember
eyes
the
are
Frighteners
so
with Peter
dark
Jackson?
that I said to the family, I'm like, as we're watching, going, maybe she got turned into a ghost and she was on her way to a costume party dressed as a zombie because it looks very amateurish on the makeup.
Yep.
As opposed
I thought the same thing.
So okay, interesting.
I thought the same thing. So we cut back to Robbie's garage. We find out here a little bit of news, but Robbie is not an Inhuman. And I like that it's just a line. They just say it, so it's like, oh, he's not an Inhuman, he's something else. Like, we've encountered other people in this show who are powered or special, whatever you want to call them.
In a world with Spider-Man and...
Vision.
Exactly, yeah. There's other things.
And we also have Blizzard and people that on this show that we haven't seen in a
Thor.
while.
Captain America.
He sold his soul
Luke
to the
Cage.
devil. They have a little fight scene here. We see that her arms are still messed up, and then he cracks her in the arm, the busted arm that already hurts. He cracks her with the fiery exhaust.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
Yeah, it was a cool little scene. That's where she knocks the car off the platform at him.
How was he going to explain that to his boss?
I don't know why she just didn't knock him back instead of knocking the car off.
Yeah,
I'm cool with it.
Yeah,
though.
none of that
still
wrecked it. None of that was like, hey, why are you being so stupid?
Exactly. So back at the playground, you're gonna have to explain this scene to me. So we have Piper, who's the red shirt agent that we have, and May. They have a little weird moment here where she's like, "I can do May." She's like, "I can call you May," and then she walks away, and I'm like, "What was that all about?" I don't know if it was weird. You know what I'm talking about?
I know what you're talking about. If I had to guess, with knowing television, conventions, is that a hint towards eventual Piper has feelings for May?
That's
and
what it felt like.
It does.
It doesn't feel like.
I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with that, but at the same time, that seemed, I don't know, an amateurish way to get there.
Yeah,
or television-y kind of way.
The other way of looking at it was she was just startled by May's behavior, which I'm totally okay with, and I'm totally okay with them bringing Piper's character up a little bit to the sea level.
Do you do that under the thought process that the writers and stuff realize, they go, hey, when we want to have deaths matter, we clearly can't kill off our main characters, and we can clearly kill off any of these C-list characters and D-list characters. But if we, or, our E, if you will, even way down the list, so maybe we give Piper, a half a dozen episodes where we see her name, she gets the little conversation. So when she does buy it, we're like, oh, we knew her. We've invested a little bit of time. Is that the writers thinking down that road so they can have that in a character, or is she a character that's gonna?
Yeah, that's the same feeling that what's his name when he turned Hydra and he was thrown out of the car in the Captain America Winter Soldier. Why am I not remembering his name?
Oh, yeah. No,
that's gonna bug me.
To the internet.
But you still haven't found out the answer to who's.
I found nothing on the uncle, and I've looked at several spots, so I think this is all in your head.
No, it isn't. Look up.
I'm not looking.
I'll keep looking it up when I'm not taking control of everything here.
You're doing so well. Why would I want to jump?
So, anyways,
in?
that was a weird moment. So Coulson's going to give a tour talking about the playground and the history of Agent Carter, which is nice little throwbacks here. They mentioned
Agent Sitwell.
Agent Sitwell, thank you very much. Jasper Sitwell.
That was off my head. Jasper. I didn't look it online, everybody.
He did. He totally did. He's lying to you people. Oh my god. So the playground was built in 1949, and I like this little inside joke that they do here, because Coulson says most people know the stories of Peggy Carter, but there are so many stories that went unrecorded, which is just a little jab at, yeah, we only did 2 seasons of Agent Carter.
Nice.
And I was like, that was well played.
I didn't get that. That's really good. That was good.
Nice little joke in there. Unrecorded. So May confronts Chen, who, remember from last episode, he was the gang leader who opened up the first box.
They are in the room of white padded walls, the TARDIS room.
As we call it the TARDIS room. If you're just joining us for the first time, that's what we call it.
Yes, and May is starting to succumb to.
But we first see Chen, who is completely lost, and he's banging his head against the door, starts to bleed, and then Simmons comes in and knocks him out with some tranquilizer.
And then she makes the jump, like the assumption, what did you say? What did you do? This is just easy dialogue to get us to the point where we have to worry about you, because they were really, in a normal situation, if she had nothing wrong with her, there's no way that Simmons would come up and
she would say, what happened?
What happened? Yes, yeah, like, what happened? You would say, what did you say to him? It's like, no, he wouldn't say that.
She would say, what happened?
Exactly.
Not what did you do?
That was a little leading with that, so that they want to get to that point faster.
No, that's a good point. That's a really good point. I paused the screen on trying to look at all the other buttons that were on there, and I'm like, what do these buttons say? There's tranquilizer gas, and then there's calm. It's a bunch of stuff that made absolutely no sense. It was like T45 XCOM or something like that. It was some weird
Really?
buttons.
It's a T45 XCOM?
Yeah.
You know what that means right now?
No, tell me. You can't keep going.
I couldn't go with that one. Son of a...
So we go to the Quinjet where we see Fitz and Mac are talking.
Who's flying the plane? We don't see that person.
I like that. Well, just somebody up there, just waiting around. I like that Fitz calls out Mac. He's like, "No, you're not a mechanic. You're an engineer. Like, there's more to you than just. You're not just a mechanic."
You
Stop saying
play
that.
Video games, there,
yeah,
Mac?
you're an engineer, and an engineer is capable of a lot of stuff. And I wrote this down here, but it started bothering me later in the episode even more. His use of calling him Turbo and his nicknames are really starting to bother me. Because it's so out of place.
I do like the Mac character.
I do too. No, I do.
I
like the emotions. I
never care for the nicknames.
And the nicknames feel so contrived.
They're not like if they try to bring back Tremors, I swear to God,
they're not contrived. Like when Sawyer did it on Lost, it felt very natural to his character. This does not come off as Turbo does not come off his lips. It just feels like they wrote this in the script, and I must call him Turbo.
Yeah, I never cared for that.
It just doesn't match his character.
Thing. It's starting to bug you, huh?
It is. It was starting to bug me. It just it would take me out of the episode every time I heard it. Like,
I'm sorry to hear that, Speedy.
Back at Momentum Labs, we see Lucy. They've released some more people from the boxes. We find out that Lucy has an obsession with a book and a thing called the Dark Hold.
Yeah, the Dark Hold, or Book of Sins, was created in the comics by the elder god.
Ooh, really? This is not mentioned.
Chthon. The Dark Hold. It's Book of Sins was created in the comics by the elder god Chthon. And it was written records of all the black magic that this elder god knew. So this could be leading towards, this is all a supernatural aspect of the show, is that we're moving forward there. So, Darkhold is such a weird common, it's got dark in there, dark matter, dark hawk, dark wind, dark fire. What was the stuff that, the dark dimension is where Stephen Strange is going in to be dealing with, and our Agent Carter, what did they call that?
The void?
The black matter, something like that.
Man,
dark
we're
matter.
Go back to the,
yeah,
but dealing with that.
Yeah, but the Darkhold is actually a book. So this is definitely not going to be science. This is going to be into the mystical part.
Well, they mentioned the science with the box.
And that's what goes. Well, yes, you're right.
So we'll see where it goes. I mean, it could be science.
So there's Lucy. There's the other guy.
I have it written down real quick. Former General and current U.S. Secretary of State Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross, who presented the Avengers with the Sokovia Accords in Civil War, is Jeffrey Mace's nephew in the comics.
No, I don't think so.
That is...
I think I know who... no,
the family history and the family trees of the Marvel Universe. All right, so the other people that were there are Frederick, Vincent, and the other one doesn't get mentioned, but according to IMDb, his name is Canelo. So
Canelo?
Canelo.
Isn't that a chocolate bar?
I mean, that's Carmelo, and that's also a basketball player.
Okay.
So back at the garage, little scene here where we see Robbie gets to call out Quake for having a death wish. I like calling her Quake. Feels good. I didn't write Daisy or anything else down other than Quake the entire time.
So, and he's looking for an excuse to kill her.
Yes.
Because he can't kill her because he's not that bad.
He's not. Yeah.
And he's basically saying, there's no reason to kill you, unfortunately.
Back at Momentum Labs, we get to see Vincent, who can't talk, which is interesting. All the other ones can talk, but he can't.
I like the one guy goes, okay, he's got it the worst. But that was pretty good.
And we just see the group is splintering a little bit, that little group that is getting formed here. Back at the garage.
Well, we're finding out that they're not I like this. They're not some cohesive group who all did this together. This clearly captured several people who maybe didn't even like each other, and the same, something happened to all of them. So we're finding out that even though they've had this shared experience, doesn't mean that they all have to team up. Even though she's trying to pull them together, they're like, I didn't like you before, I don't like you now. In fact, I think you're part of the problem. I thought that was adding a level of grayness to it.
Yes, I agree. Back at the garage, Robbie gets to she shows Quake a picture of Lincoln that she's been carrying around with her, which I thought nice little throwback there.
And I thought he showed it to her
because
he went through his stuff.
No,
she didn't show it to him.
That was a part of her stuff, I thought.
I know, but he showed it to her.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, she didn't.
Like she's still carrying it around, is what I'm saying. As much
and
as
he made a jump there, saying, "Oh, this guy's clearly dead." There was no signs of little X's over his eyes.
Can he see into her soul, kind of thing?
I don't know about that.
Anywho, Quake shares. There's a little scene here. If you blink, you miss it. But Quake shares the information about the Momentum Energy Labs with Robbie.
Yeah, I did.
I don't know how she got all the information, but she's a hacker and she got it. And that's where he storms off. But right as he storms off, Quake busts through the ropes here using her Quake power.
But that's not the cool part. This is the cool part.
She runs outside and does the flying with her Quake ability and jumps and lands on top of the car, and then the car starts driving.
And I'm like, car chase on S.H.I.E.L.D. We cannot go wrong here.
I liked it.
I did too, actually.
I did too. A little.
They must listen to our podcast, and they said we're going to show these.
Well,
guys.
I think they went. We have to have a nice car on this show, so we need to bring in car stunt shooting experts. I think that's what they did with it.
Apparently, those cars are hard to drive because of the big thing in the front, the manifold.
With the fire coming out of it and everything.
Yes, it's hard to see.
Which was an awesome. He turns the fire on, and that throws her off. She rolls, tucks and rolls. No injuries. She's okay there, which I thought was a little.
When she's starting to fall, her body automatically emits a small quake that pressure.
I'll buy that. That's good. And she's also taking the pills too. So I don't know if that makes you feel better, but. All right, we got back to the playground. This is a little quick scene here with the tour going on. And the only thing I wrote down is I like the way Jeffrey's handling things. Like, he's not, getting angry at Coulson and Simmons.
It almost makes him seem phony, though.
No, I thought it... Because you say phony, interesting. I think genuine. He's like...
I hope so. But I guess my guard is up. This is a show this is a show that has turned and made characters have alternate agendas, even to the point where you had characters who turn out to be Hydra agents and you don't know what their agenda is. So my guard is up. I don't see a genuine person. I see no, what's he pulling? What's he trying to do?
My guard is that my guard wasn't up with him. I'm complete opposite. I was genuinely liking him, and I'm like, and we'll talk a little bit more about him when we a little
When
bit.
he shows up for our podcast, it'll be fantastic.
Yes. Back at Momentum Energy Labs.
Isn't he isn't he British, by the way, the actor?
Probably. Aren't they all British?
Pretty much.
Back at the Energy Labs, Mac gets to use his shotgun axe, which when I was watching it, I was like, oh, I said out loud, I went, oh, shotgun axe. And then I made myself laugh because I said the words shotgun axe out loud by myself.
That's going to be his code name.
That's great, though.
She's the cavalry. He's shotgun axe.
I love that he has it. I love that they kept it. That's the writers got to get a kick out of it.
It was a throwaway line that got some traction.
And then so Fitz and Mac, they get confronted by the spirit ghost people, guys, things.
Just the one.
Back at the playground? Yeah, just the one because he stayed
the other
behind.
Ones, yes,
they all left.
He's going to burn it to the ground,
Burn it to the ground, yep. Back at the playground, May is freaking out in the locker room, so it's good to see the locker room again. And they have that set there, like, let's use it.
So then Phil is basically realizing, he's like, all right, I got to get her.
Phil can calm her down, which was,
but he's trying to take her somewhere. Was he trying to get her to one of those containment rooms, perhaps?
Potentially. Yeah, I don't know exactly. They don't actually explicitly say where they're taking her.
Yeah.
Back at the labs, and I think it was Hugo that was left behind. I just wrote down, I think that. He wants to blow up the reactor, and Mac gets trapped in the reactor. Back at the playground.
Frederick.
Is it Frederick?
Yes,
okay.
Yes. So he gets locked in that. What was that he was locked into that was clearly a human door-shaped container?
It's a reactor of some sort.
That has nothing in it. It was weird. It was like, this looks like I thought it was something. I thought it was what Jeff Goldblum used to transport from one side to the other in The Fly.
It's a villain set is what it is. It's a comic book's villain set.
It was a little cheesy.
I was okay with it. It didn't bother me at all. So back at the playground, May ends up getting into a fight with all the S.H.I.E.L.D. agents, and she kicks all their asses, I was hoping she would have ripped off
Coulson's arm.
Coulson was like had his fist out with his. He didn't hit her. He could have if he would have hit her, he could have knocked her out with his fist.
They only had trank guns.
They're called icers.
He should have iced her, baby.
And then we get introduced by Jeffrey. He has. What I'm going to call Luke Cage power.
It was fantastic. He's even more than Luke Cage.
First, I didn't know what was going on because I didn't know anything about this character. So when he got hit first, I was like, and the way he was talking, I was like, is he a robot? Is this an element? Like, is that where we're going with this?
And no one seems surprised. Not one character, including May, was like, "Oh my gosh!" It's like, so he is known for what he has.
Yeah, and I'll mention that. We'll mention that later too because they talk about that. Yeah, so he has super. I want to say Luke Cage, super strength, impervious.
Even more so.
Skin.
I would say. I mean, he's very Superman-like in that respect. I mean, the fact that he picks her up, doesn't strain. The way he doesn't look like he even flinches at all. I'm trying to remember when he gets.
No, he doesn't.
Yeah,
he doesn't turn. It just hits.
Yes, exactly. So I love the idea of someone who's in charge, who has all this, who has this power in reserve and doesn't even use it. He stays back. It reminds me, I'm trying to think of other examples in the anime from the 90s, Giant Robo, how Chief Chochu, the main guy in that, was like the one, like have all these great field agents who are fantastic. And once they get back, he's like, all right, I'm going in. Everybody abandoned ship and abandoned base because I'm going to use my powers, and it's so powerful that everybody has to leave like a 2-mile radius because he's so much more powerful. And I'm like, I love that. I know there's other
Dragon Ball Z does that,
but I mean, there's conventions where you have like the leader is somebody who has got this power that he doesn't even go in the field because he's just incredible.
Well, there's the Great Simpsons one too, where the little guy wasn't fighting. There's the the mafia versus the Yakuza or whatever. He's like,
I gotta do something cool.
I hope there's like one person out there who knows what we're talking about.
Yes, Simpsons is a show on Fox. Yes. I don't know if you've seen it.
So that was a really cool introduction to his character.
It was.
Guess what?
It was great.
I didn't see it coming.
Is there any way else of actually knocking her out other than throwing her head violently into a? If she didn't have a problem with her head before, she does now because
concussion central right there.
That was pretty.
And
I mean, it was fine, but man, she got smashed.
Coulson's face when that happens. Ooh. So at the labs, Robbie comes in. And he grabs Frederick by the arm and he ends up turning into Ghost Rider again. They should do that every episode because it's awesome looking.
He saves Fitz at the last.
Oh yeah, Daisy breaks out Mac when she comes in, and then Fitz stops the meltdown. And then right as he's walking out, Robbie Ghost Rider grabs a picture. There's 8 people in that picture. One of them's dead. There are 2 women in that picture. So there are we've seen 4 of these people, 4 out of the 8.
Ward was one of the people, right?
No.
No? Dang it.
So we've seen 4 out of the 8 people in that picture. One of them's dead. So are we going to see the other 4? I think one of them's going to be someone who survived.
Is one of them the bad guy?
One of them is
guy?
the he, I bet. One of them is someone who survived that they're going to end up like, we need some information about what happened. Let's go talk to one of the survivors. And
well, the Ghost Rider coming up, jumping forward a little, he says that he thinks he is, part of that or the connection. So that'll be real interesting. I feel like
the Ghost Rider zaps that
for
one
me,
guy.
it seemed like on the surface, this was a storyline that was 2 separate storylines, where whatever's going on with this ghost situation and everything, and then meanwhile they have the Ghost Rider involved in it. But the fact that they're going to tie all this together I think is pretty cool.
Well, it was slightly tied together because you're right. You're right. Momentum Labs. He remember he stormed off from Momentum Labs, so he knows what's going on there.
It reminds me of the Encounter at Farpoint pilot episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation, which I learned in that documentary I was telling you about, where it was originally one storyline, the whole encounter at Farpoint, and the network said, no, it needs to be a 2-hour pilot. So Gene Roddenberry went back, took the storyline, and he added Q to the storyline, which turned out to be like the better part of it. And if you watch the episode, when you watch the episode, you realize that the Q is like in and out and in and out, and it's like he's talking about what's happening, but it's really there's 2 separate storylines that they kind of merge together.
Huh? Interesting.
So maybe Q will be involved in this.
That'd be great. Connect the universes.
Q, get off my bridge. That's all I got.
There we go. So back on the Quinjet, Mac is bandaging up Quake's wrists here, and then Mac and Quake have a philosophical debate.
And then realizes that...
Yeah, because he talks about giving her the bone-healing drugs.
And then she makes that look like, and
then he puts it together that Yo-Yo has been working behind his
It was
back.
one of those things where he was like pulling all the information. He's like, but you know about this already because of Yo-Yo.
You saw his gears spinning.
He's like, and that bottle has 36 pills in it, and you've already had 14. And you had the last one an hour and a half ago. And I think you had broccoli for dinner. He's like pulling all this information. It's like, my God, he can read people.
And this is probably my favorite moment of the episode. Again, why I love the character Fitz and the actor and the writing for that character. He has the best part here where he just calls out Quake he's like, she's turning our back on us because of all the terrible things that have happened. But none of us have turned our back on that. Why do you get to be special?
Did he call her
about
selfish or something like that?
Well, I don't know if he used that specific word, but it's very much that's what he's saying. Like, you're selfish. Like, you're just
initially, my first reaction was like, oh, dude, that's kind of harsh because I'm thinking about what. But then I'm listening to him like, yeah, he's dead on. He's like, I got dropped at the bottom of the ocean, had brain damage. The one guy got killed. Gemma got stuck on a planet for months on end. Mac makes bad nicknames and stuff, and I guess he turned into an inhuman bad guy for about half an hour, so that was pretty bad too. But yeah.
It's so...
Phil lost his arm.
And Phil lost his girlfriend.
May lost her ex-husband, who she didn't care about, but then she did again.
And she saw a little kid die in front of her.
Yeah, so buck up.
But it was just calling her out, and it's like, yeah, Fitz is so right, and the way he delivers the line
she looks at him,
and everything
like,
was perfect.
You don't know. Shut up. You don't know. My people, who I didn't even know I had before, but now they're my people. Oh, get out of here. Get out of here.
So back at the playground, a little interesting scene here. I don't know if it's going to come into play later, but Jeffrey takes a picture with the tour group. And they made it was a
But now don't post that on there because it's...
Yeah, I guess they're just trying to show his humility and like how
they're showing that he's a celebrity. He's a celebrity, and it made it seem like, hey, don't post that, but hopefully by the next time you see me...
This won't be a secret.
This will be a public, and then you can do that. So this is all a bunch of
so Coulson and Jeffrey have a conversation here, and apparently what Coulson says, Jeffrey was put into place as a powered person people can trust, and since Steve Rogers has went AWOL. Yeah. So I guess maybe they'll go back, like he's been living for a long time. Maybe he can live for a long time.
This was Coulson's idea.
Exactly, with the president.
He's like, you can have the job. I don't want the job. You should have a Captain America-like person.
Maybe he's one of those people that can live a long time.
That's what I'm hoping.
And he was around from the war, and then we'll get some. Here we go. This is how you wrap up some of the Peggy Carter stuff too. You bring her on for an episode or two. You can start solving some of those problems by showing
do a flashback with him at that age.
Exactly.
Brilliant.
But him at that age, maybe he doesn't age.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Because the super skin and all that stuff, he's just.
Yeah. Do they pull this character out because they don't have the rights, or they don't want to do the Human Torch? Jim Hammond, who would have been back in Captain America days. That's the other invader character. Back in the World War II days, it was Captain America, Bucky, Jim Hammond, who's the original Human Torch, and Submariner Namor. And it would have been cool, basically.
The Human Torch?
Yeah.
They got Fire on the show. We could bring more. They can also compete with Legends of Tomorrow.
Yeah, I wonder if there's a little fine line in that whole thing when they deal with the Human Torch and don't want to confuse people with the Fantastic Four. I don't know.
No, that's a good point. It's a good point. At this point, when Marvel finally gets Fantastic Four back,
if they don't already have it.
All right. Ooh.
So they have the conversation where Coulson basically gets all his words thrown back into him, saying
Yep.
it's.
He calls out Coulson for not being objective with Daisy and May,
and he's dead on. He's absolutely right.
Like, no,
and Coulson's like,
loop.
I'm gonna have to be covert, and maybe at the end of the day, my covert stuff will be what saves the day, and that's how the show justifies that stuff. But I agree. At the same time, it's like you can't do that. Mac always did it, And
Coulson's gonna be an interesting character here because you want him to be the leader of the father figure of the family of S.H.I.E.L.D. agents here, which was what they originally did. It's like a little family and all that kind of stuff.
Well, they initially had him be the leader of a small group, and they were isolated doing their thing. And then he has to become the leader of the whole organization, and now they're pulling him in a different role.
Yeah, and I'm interested where they take him because they can't obviously bring him back to what he was when he first appeared in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the super agent, the agent who knows everything that's going on, the right-hand man. And that'd be cool to do that, but we know so much more about him that it would be hard to bring him back to that place.
What was interesting is they had said, or maybe it was the creators of the show or whatever, where they talk about how we can't have Coulson be the head of the organization because he's dead. And I'm like, that's not an excuse, because they can just say, hey, he's alive, because he's clearly running around, and if he's that much of a public figure, who gives that means nothing. That means nothing. All that means is you then have to write a dialogue line that all the Avengers go, oh my God, that guy's alive again, because that's a big point for them. So they said that either in press, or Jeff Loeb said it, or the producers said that. But in the context of the show, they basically say, no, you could be the leader. You chose not to. Nobody was saying, hey, Phil, you can't be the leader because everybody thinks you're dead, because that makes no sense. So I don't know why they were talking about that outside of the show, but within the context of the show, that's not an issue at all.
Good point. Very good point.
That's 5 points.
So we cut back to a Quinjet. I don't know if this is the same Quinjet that the Congress people are on.
That's my question. I was hoping you were going to ask.
The one of them looked like the Congress person, but there's May strapped in.
That's my question, and I have not read anything about this anywhere, is it adds to the nefarious attitude that Jeffrey Mace projected to me, because he's saying, don't worry, we got it covered. And then you cut to this Quinjet, which looks like it has all the Congress people, who then make them look like they're nefarious, and they've got some plans, because they're looking down at, why is she doing that? Because if she's got a problem, they're just going to put her in one of those isolation rooms, unless, that's where the other Chinese characters are at. So I don't know.
Yeah, we'll see.
It's
gonna
them?
Be interesting. I'm
it's
curious about May's character. This is actually something that is something.
So
they're
were
doing.
those the senators and the congressmen at the end?
I don't know. That's a good question. I guess we can go frame by frame and take a look to see if.
And
that
was one of them Thaddeus Ross, the nephew of Jeffrey Mace, like I told you earlier?
Exactly. So we got to our button here, which was a fairly weak button, but it basically shows that Daisy and Robbie are going to be working together. Quake and Ghost Rider will be teaming up here, which that's awesome in itself. That's
well,
really
this is
cool.
a big deal for him, because his character is a loner, and he's like, get in and do it together. So
that's really cool. But as far as like intriguing for the next episode, I guess the May thing is more intriguing for me. So that's the episode.
I was excited. Notice that the actor who plays the Doctor, Radcliffe, he's in the opening credits, even though he's not in the episode. Which makes me think that they've moved him up to a recurring role where he still gets credit in episodes he's not even in, which means is he actually main cast, because usually that's main cast.
They talked about him being main cast.
So maybe
he wasn't in the pictures, but
so is he a main cast character? Because
the promo pictures.
Once you're in the opening credits, if you're not in an episode, that's something that's been figured out through the Guild and everything else. Who you get credits.
Well, he's a great actor, and he's done a ton of television. The same with Jason Mara.
Yeah.
Amara, whatever.
But Jason Mara is not in the credits.
Not yet. I hope he sticks around with the show.
Well,
I don't know what he's doing now.
I think the character is designed to be whatever the character is designed. If they design it for a full term, then it's going to be that. Or if they said we need a character because after 6 episodes, he's going to
which they've done numerous
blow up,
times.
yeah.
They've killed off people after a couple episodes.
I always forget about Coulson's girlfriend,
Yeah,
Roz, right? Roz?
Well, no, yes, he said 2 girlfriends get killed off. Roz and then the cello player.
They didn't kill her.
Oh, they didn't kill the cello.
No,
the cello
she's back.
Yeah, that's
she's
right.
back
Yeah, I mean,
there.
that's yeah.
She's fine.
Yep.
You'll never see her again.
No.
She's done.
So I mean, we'll see if Jason. It's interesting because he's been the lead actor in a couple of shows where
Failed shows.
That's just it. They're failed shows. Or
And
did
Terra
they feel
Nova was a big failure.
big failure, big money, a lot of money went into that show. So I'm wondering if it's one of those things that's like, you're a really good actor, you're a face people recognize.
Do they?
But you can't lead a show, but we want you in this show, so we're gonna pay you good money to be in the show. I don't know. I mean, I've always wondered how that works because,
I like him, but
like,
yeah.
Haley Atwell? You know, she's doing the next show on ABC. If that show succeeds and it's around for a long time, great. But if that fails, that's 2 failed shows then. If you want to call it,
all you need
Agent
is
Carter
one success. All you need is a movie or whatever. I don't think the failures are as bad as they used to be. Name recognition, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
So-
you can be a critical success, which can keep you going for a long time. So that was the episode. Any final thoughts on it?
Like I said, it wasn't as good as the pilot. A lot of like little stuff in there that is like it's building up to stuff, and I'm excited. I'm sad that we have to take a week off, but Luke Cage will be.
Well, you know what's well, yeah, exactly, and it's weird. Having a TV show only 2 episodes in and then taking a break. Usually they want to get build a couple episodes to get the momentum going.
Well, the numbers were huge. The numbers were really.
Oh, that was
good
good information that came out because there was
pilot.
initial talk about initial numbers were not so great, blah blah blah. But the 3+ days or whatever that number is, which is some shows only use that number. These came back and they were strong. Like
that's DVR. That is, I think that's streaming.
And that's what's relevant. I was hearing numbers as high as 5.5 million, and so boom.
It's great.
I mean,
I think the Ghost Rider had a lot to do with that.
I think so too. It definitely helped. And I think they did it well enough, and then they left enough intrigue to it that hopefully they'll get more people to go, hey, I want to see what happens next week.
Mm-hmm.
I want to see what's happening next week. Oh, the next week it's not on. Well, I'm going to quote watching, and
I'm done
now
watching this
they've
show.
screwed up.
Designated Survivor is the only thing I'm watching. Did you watch that?
No,
I didn't watch it either.
I didn't watch the new Kevin James show yet either.
Or I'm not gonna watch that.
Westworld.
All right. Well, thank you for listening to us today, and make sure you, like I said, check us out on Facebook and Twitter.
Yeah,
and
you heard all that stuff.
all those places.
Yeah. Until next time, and in always, I'm Jerry.
And I'm Joel. Until next time and always.